back to my Mexican kitchen here in Switzerland. The recipe for today is from the Mexican bakeries. It's called Cortadillos, which is basically a very small, let's say a vanilla sheet cake with a pink glazing and a center filled with strawberry jam. They are so yummy, so I hope you guys enjoy watching the video and later on preparing them with me. The ingredients you need to make the cake part of your cortadillo are 2 cups of flour, the equivalent is 240 grams, 1/4 cup of cornstarch, or also called maizena, the equivalent is 40 grams, 3 teaspoons of baking powder, the equivalent is 10 grams, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, the equivalent is 6 grams, half a teaspoon of salt, the equivalent is 3 grams, 6 eggs, 2/3 cup of milk, the equivalent is 150 milliliters, 1 cup of cooking oil. I'm using peanut oil, but you can use sunflower or corn or whichever one you like using for cooking, and the equivalent is 225 milliliters. Half a cup of sugar, the equivalent is 110 grams. The zest of 1 lemon, the juice of 1 lemon, 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. For the center of your cake, you're going to need about half a cup of strawberry jam. And for the glazing, you need 1 cup of confectioner's sugar, the equivalent is 160 grams, 4 teaspoons of milk, 2 teaspoons of melted butter, half a teaspoon of lemon juice, and you're also going to need sugar sprinkles. For the glazing, everything is going to be divided in 2 parts. So this whole amount, you're going to divide it in 2 parts. Later on, I'll show you why. And optional pink food coloring. Okay, so before we get started, all the steps in this cake, in this dessert, in this pastry, whatever you want to call it, are super fast. So I recommend preheating your oven first at 180 degrees Celsius or 360 degrees Fahrenheit. And while it's heating up now, we can start preparing the sponge of our cake or dessert. So what you're going to do is in your mixer, whether you use a stand mixer or a hand mixer, you add your eggs in the bowl and your sugar, and you're going to whisk them until it turns pale yellow and fluffy. You want that really pale yellow and fluffy texture. Once that happens, we're going to add our milk, our oil, our lemon juice, our zest, and our vanilla extract. And we continue to mix until it's all incorporated very well. And after that, we're going to add our dry ingredients. But before adding them, we have to sift them. So we're going to put either in a sifter or in a colander or anything you use for sifting the flour, the cornstarch, the baking soda, the baking powder, and the salt. And you sift them in there. Be sure to mix not so long once you add the dry ingredients, especially because of the flour, because you don't want the gluten to overdevelop and then give you a very hard cake. You want it to be very fluffy, very moist, which is also why we're using oil instead of butter in this case. That will give you a very moist cake. So that's the pointers for now. Okay, so our cake batter is done. As you saw, I finished mixing with a spatula. That is really important. Once you add the dry ingredients, don't keep mixing with your electric mixer. It's better to just finish it off with a spatula. Otherwise, your cake won't be so nice. What we're going to do is we're going to need a rectangular cake form. Mine is 25 by 35 centimeters, so you need quite a large one. And you're going to have to grease it. I'm just going to use a cooking spray. You can use butter or oil, whatever you prefer. And I also like putting some baking paper in the bottom just to really make sure that it comes out. And we're going to bake it for about 25 minutes at the same temperature I told you guys to preheat your oven. Once those 25 minutes are over, you can check your cake to see if it's done by inserting a toothpick in the center of your cake. And if it comes out clean, it means it's done. If it's still a bit gooey or moist, then you can leave it a couple of minutes in there and then you can do the toothpick test again. Once your cake is done baking, take it out of the oven. And in the same form, you can let it rest for about 15 minutes so it starts cooling down gradually. And after the 15 minutes, you can turn it over, take it out of the mold, and leave it on a cooling rack so it finishes cooling off. You really need the cake to be fully cool before doing the next step. Okay, so the cake has cooled down. What we're going to do now is we're going to cut the cake in half. So you're going to measure, you can eyeball it or you can measure it. so that you have two equal parts. You don't want one to be bigger than the other one, so you cut lengthwise, and then you're going to put jam just on one side. You have to, I suggested half a cup. It can be more, it can be less, that's up to you guys. I really wouldn't put more because once you put the other layer of cake on top of that, you're gonna sandwich it. The jam will kind of spill out through the sides and you don't really want that to happen. So I think half a cup maximum is the best option. So you put your jam and you spread it evenly all over one of the sides that you cut. The other side, you're going to sit it on top of that. You have to position it perfectly so that it's just like a tower, perfectly fitting in. And then once you have the two sides stacked on each other, you're going to cut it this way also equally, and you're going to have two separate forms again. Now here comes the icing part. I already separated, I asked, for example, for 1 cup of confectioner sugar, so I already separated it in half and half. Same goes for all the other ingredients. I separated the milk, the lemon juice, the butter, all already into separate portions. What you're going to do is you're going to pour all the ingredients in here. So you pour in your lemon juice, your milk, your butter, and you whisk it together so it integrates well. You're going to do that with both. One of them you're going to paint pink. These breads are usually the most traditional way to find them is with the pink food coloring, so the pink icing. But you can also find them with white. So if you guys don't want to add food coloring, you can make it all white. And what you do is you just add some food coloring to get it to the color tone you want, but it has to be pink. That's the special part. And once you have both your icings done, you're going to spread the pink one on one of the sides and the white one on the other. You use an offset spatula and you spread it out as evenly as possible, trying to not drip on the sides. If it does drip, it's okay, it can be fixed, but just try to do it slowly so that you can really spread it out as evenly as possible. And last but not least, you're going to add your sugar sprinkles in there. I'm using the round type. So if you can find these, fine. If not, you can use any kind of colored sprinkles you can find. And you can also use coconut. It's nice with both versions. But you have to add those while the glazing is fresh. Otherwise, if it gets dry, they'll just roll off. Once you're done putting your sprinkles on your cake, you have to let the glaze dry fully, like really until it hardens before you can cut your cortadillos. What you're going to do is you have to cut them into little squares. Okay, so we're done with our bread, our cortadillos, which you can find in a lot of Mexican bakeries. If you guys like exploring and tasting different breads, this is one you will find in a lot of the bakeries. Just as a tip that I think I can add is the glazing may feel a bit thick, like hard to spread to some of you. That can be fixed super easy. All you have to do is add an extra teaspoon of milk into the confectioner sugar. You continue mixing until it gets a bit more liquidy. I wouldn't recommend adding too much, otherwise it drips. It turns into kind of like a completely water consistency, and that's not nice either. I think it's easier to spread when it's thicker. But other than that, I don't think there's any changes to add to the recipe or to tell you guys. One thing that I do like doing is the bread, when you finish making it, the sides are a bit golden like it would be with any cake. So those I like slicing off more for presentation than because you need it. If you're going to eat it at home with your family, there's no need to do that. It's extra work and no point. But let's say you're having guests over, it looks nicer if it's nicely cut. What I do is let me show you. I just shave as close as I can the edges off with the knife. I cut them off, and like that you have straight cuts, which makes it look much nicer. But this I get to snack on, so it's a win-win. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Enjoy it with café de olla. We have the video there in our video playlist. You can see how to make that as well. And I'll see you guys in the next recipe.